once we had the conference in each region, of course, then came the next steps of what they were going to do. Because in every case, in the meeting in Tagaytay in the Philippines, where APWLD established itself, a meeting in Costa Rica, where CLADEM established itself, then finally in Harare, where WiLDAF, the participants wanted to start a regional organization for Africa. And it was that point, excuse me, that Florence really came into the picture. And so I would like, if Florence could tell us a little bit about what happened then, because for any one of these organizations to become a real entity, it meant an enormous amount of work. And I think you can really enlighten us about that aspect of the work, Florence. Thanks.
Thank you, Marge. Once the decision was made to start the organization, and with Marge and Lisa's support, it was agreed that for it to start, there really needed to be somebody from the network on the ground. Lisa came over to Zimbabwe. Incidentally, the conference had decided the head office would be in Zimbabwe, in Harare. So I moved to Harare, or I'd rather say we moved with Lisa Veniklasen. We shared an apartment together, and I moved with my youngest 3 children because by then my partner was doing his PhD in the US. So I moved with the family. It was a very interesting time. And I think one of the most interesting bit was the conversation with development partners, trying to find a donor who would agree to invest in something that doesn't even exist. That was really, and it picks up from Margie's experience that she talked about when she was looking for funding for supporting the regional organizing. So a lot of the donors were asking, but you have no track record. Regional organizations are difficult to work. And there was this notion that women's organizing should target women directly at the grassroots level. And that was something that I think upset me a lot. Like women must be confined to working on basic needs only, because the argument was that there are so many poor women, you should go out there, help them start some micro projects and so on. And we were saying, no, this is a regional organization. And our mandate is to support those organizations that are working directly with the women on the ground. So finally, we did get HIVOS, a Dutch funding organization that is quite progressive, to give us our first grant. The other challenge was, of course, convincing the government in Zimbabwe to register us as an international organization. They are used to international organizations being in the US, in the UK, and then coming to register a branch office, or to be registered, accredited as an international organization. We didn't want to be registered as a national organization. So that also took some convincing to show how an African organization fulfills the qualifications that other organizations had. And in fact, we did more than that, because it was an organization of members. So that was also an interesting discourse. We had a steering committee, which was the highest decision-making body, composed of people from 15 countries, which was a challenge because we needed to have a regional balance. So people from Central Africa, Western Africa, Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, and so on. It is very good in terms of democratic practice representation, but also it's challenging in terms of resourcing when you have board meetings, when you have a rather big board. But it worked very well. And I think it was the right decision because we were able to tap into the richness of the initiatives in each of those regions. And interestingly, it turned out each of the region provided leadership on a particular thematic area. For instance, in Eastern Africa, where there were lots of conflicts in Somalia, in Ethiopia, in South Sudan, in Northern Uganda, the East Africans led on the thematic area of women, peace, and security. Southern Africa led us in terms of work on violence against women and property rights. Western Africa led us in terms of structural adjustment and economic rights and so on. So it was a very wonderful way of organizing ourselves. As a network, legal rights awareness was a priority. We wanted to have a mechanism for rapid response in case women's rights advocates. We didn't know about human rights defenders then, but even then there were governments that were very tough on anybody talking rights. So we wanted a rapid response mechanism to support those who might come in conflict with the law or those who might be persecuted. But the bulk of our work was capacity development, developing the tools like the training manuals and so on, so that the organizations could get on with the work of implementation, rather than each organization developing its own training manual and so on. They could adapt that, but we would have the basics drawn from all the good practices in the region. And we developed a core team of trainers who could be called upon to go to Nigeria, to go to Senegal, to go to wherever, Mozambique, and do the training using those materials we developed. And I think the other area we wanted to stop the isolation. The issues that Africa was dealing with were very similar to the issues in Asia, in Latin America. So it was a conscious decision that we would, as much as possible, work with the other networks. And one of the things I learned was that although, for instance, women in India were dealing with the issues around bridal burning, around whatever, we had a corresponding violation in Africa, although we didn't call it that, or it didn't manifest like that, but the underlying issue of discrimination were very similar, very comparable in the different regions. And of course, that collaboration didn't stop within the WLD networks alone. We reached out to other networks, other coalitions, especially in the advocacy at the global level. And within Africa, other networks which were not necessarily part of the women law and development. And I think that approach to building networks and really cementing not cementing, maybe consolidating women's voices on particular issues was very successful. Because if, for instance, there was an issue in Kenya and Kenyan women within the network called on the other networks to support, they could count on people within the WiLDAF network, but also women from other networks. And that had a very good outcome in terms of the government responses when issues went out of its national boundaries. Yeah.
So that's great, Florence. Thank you.